Hello and welcome to I Want to Fight Araki, a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure close analysis podcast. And this very special day, we are recording together in the same room, just waiting to be let out of quarantine. So we figured, why not just do a podcast episode. Anyway, I'm Thomas.
I'm M of Lee.
And today we are discussing JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I forgot the specific episode numbers because I forgot to bring the schedule with me, but it's the High Priestess episodes and the Fool episodes.
Exciting.
Yes. So, without further ado, let's just hop right into the summary. So, the Stardust Crusaders continue their journey via submarine as everyone takes a moment to breathe. Joseph decides to call Susie Q, who is still in New York and getting ready to attend a charity function put on by Smokey. Joseph lies to her about still being on a business trip, and with the help of the Joestar's butler, Rosas, Joseph is able to convince Susie not to visit Holly in Japan, despite the fact that her condition is worsening. After a coffee break, Polnareff notices that there are mysteriously 6 cups, and when Joseph drinks from one, it transforms and cuts off his hand, knocking him unconscious. Jotaro attempts to subdue the enemy using Star Platinum but fails, and Avdol explains that the stand is High Priestess, and it has the power to transform into any object made of minerals. The stand begins creating leaks in the ship, and water pours in. Jotaro eventually catches the High Priestess and tries to crush it, but it transforms into a razor and escapes. Kakyoin is also attacked when High Priestess transforms into a fire extinguisher. As chaos continues to unfold on the sub, Susie Q calls back, and Jotaro answers after some hesitation, and he assures Susie that Joseph is alright and hangs up the phone. Joseph regains consciousness as Polnareff leads the group to an airlock with scuba equipment. Joseph explains what they need to do to survive the water pressure, and just as they are about to head off, Polnareff's regulator transforms into High Priestess. It burrows into Polnareff, but Hierophant Green and Hermit Purple are able to flush it out. It then transforms into a spear gun. Silver Chariot is able to deflect the attacks, and the group escapes from the submarine. Eventually, they come across a nose-shaped ingress, but it turns out to be the High Priestess, which swallows the group. The user, Rose, admits that she thinks Jotaro is her type, and Polnareff tells Jotaro to compliment her. She's at first flattered, but when the Crusaders lay it on too thick, she attempts to kill them by thrashing about her tongue. The attack sends Jotaro flying into High Priestess's teeth, and Jotaro is thought to be dead. High Priestess gloats that her teeth are as hard as diamonds, but when all hope seems lost, Star Platinum's stand cries can be heard in the background, and it punches through the teeth of the High Priestess, allowing everyone to escape. Everyone surfaces on the Egyptian shoreline, and Polnareff discovers the body of Rose, now disfigured and unconscious because of her lack of teeth. Eventually, the group winds up in a town, and Joseph calls Susie Q once more to let her know that he'll be late coming home. Susie then asks to talk to Jotaro. She says that whatever they are working on, there's nothing the Joestars can't accomplish when they work together. Jotaro hangs up, and Joseph says the rest of the journey is going to be tougher as they approach Dio, but Jotaro reminds him that they're not alone as Kakyoin, Avdol, and Polnareff greet them from a dune buggy, preparing to meet up with the Speedwagon Foundation in the middle of the desert. The Crusaders meet up at the rendezvous point, and Avdol says that they are recruiting a new member, the user of the Fool Stand. Polnareff mocks the name of the stand, saying the user must be an idiot, but Avdol warns that Polnareff should not underestimate the user. The Speedwagon Foundation helicopter lands and informs the group of 2 things. The first being that, in addition to Whole Horse's Emperor and the holder of the World Stand, Dio has recruited 9 more men and women to fight on his behalf. The second fact is that Holly's condition is worsening, and that the Crusaders only have 2 weeks to defeat the 9 new stand users and kill Dio. Polnareff, meanwhile, looks inside the helicopter for the mysterious new member, but finds nothing but a blanket. Polnareff once again insinuates that the Fool user is weak, but suddenly a black and white Boston Terrier jumps out of the helicopter and begins to bite Polnareff's hair off. Avdol introduces the dog as Iggy, but Joseph brings up the fact that Iggy has a nasty habit of flatulence right when Iggy farts in Polnareff's face. Polnareff, getting sick of his new canine companion, attacks Iggy with Silver Chariot, but then sand begins to form up around Iggy and morphs into a creature with a stone head, red and yellow feather decorations, and robotic arms with wheels as the back legs, displaying the Fool's ability to change shape by absorbing sand. The 2 stands clash, but it is drawn to a stalemate when Avdol offers Iggy some of his favorite treat, coffee-flavored gum. Unfortunately, Avdol has the pack in his other hand, and Iggy steals that rather than taking a single piece. Everyone tries to get used to each other, and the group decides to take a picture with the whole group to commemorate the journey. Just as the team decides to get going, with Iggy hogging the back seat to himself, a blind man listens to the encounter and swears to kill the Crusaders with his stand, Geb. The group begins driving along when they suddenly see the Speedwagon Foundation helicopter crashed and destroyed in the road. While one pilot clawed at the exterior of the copter, the other one is alive and says the phrase, water. Joseph, as a result, picks up a discarded canteen, but just when he is about to pour some water from the canteen for the pilot, a hand reaches out and rips the pilot's head off. Everyone jumps back for cover, and Kakyoin orders Polnareff to attack the canteen. Polnareff doesn't want to, and the two bicker when suddenly the water stand slashes Kakyoin's eyes, blinding him. Blood begins dripping from Kakyoin's face, and Geb goes in for the kill when one of the pilot's alarms on his watch goes off, and Geb attacks that instead. Everyone deduces that Geb attacks through sand and decides to make a beeline for the buggy, sans Iggy. Avdol tries to get the car started, but Geb makes a pit that causes the group's car to flip over. Everyone lands and tries to stay still, but Ndul prepares to attack anyway as he can sense where they landed. Just as he is about to do so, Avdol throws his bracelets to simulate walking. This confuses Ndul so that when he summons Geb, Avdol is able to attack it with Magician's Red. Geb is able to dodge, but is burned a little by the attack. Ndul attacks the group again, but this time Jotaro begins sprinting in a specific direction. Everyone is confused, but after sprinting for a while, Jotaro grabs Iggy and starts running. Jotaro figures out that Iggy can sense Geb's location through smell and forces Iggy to tell Jotaro the location. Iggy panics and forms the Fool into a glider, as well as making a sand clone of himself to escape. Fortunately, Jotaro is able to grab onto the Fool as it glides, making it difficult for Ndul to sense him. As the glider falls, Jotaro uses Star Platinum's kick to ascend higher, and Geb begins to kick up sand in order to sense the Fool. Iggy tries to let Jotaro off by dragging him across the ground, but Jotaro grabs Iggy with Star Platinum and throws him at Ndul, forcing their stands to deflect one another. In the chaos, Ndul loses track of Jotaro. Eventually, he realizes that Jotaro is behind him and uses Geb as in a last-ditch effort to save himself, but Star Platinum is too fast and punches Ndul. Ndul then uses his stand to kill himself, believing that the Crusaders would interrogate him. In his dying moments, Ndul says that he will not betray his team, but that their stands invoke the gods of Egypt. After the fight, Iggy brings back Jotaro's hat, which was knocked off by Geb, as a peace offering, only for Jotaro to put it on and discover coffee-flavored gum all over it as the two walk back to the group. End of episodes.
Iggy is great, I'll just say that.
Yeah.
And he definitely embodies his namesake a lot, which would be Iggy Pop.
Yeah, he's named after Iggy Pop, which is like one of the earlier musical references in Stardust Crusaders. We're not at like the mass musical references yet.
Iggy Pop was one of the strangest human beings to walk the earth.
He really was.
Look up the strange things he has done. He's a chaotic bastard. He just there's so many memes about how sad his torso looks now. And yet somehow he still looks more normal with a shirt off, because he just doesn't ever wear clothes. He's just a feral goblin bastard.
Possibly a reference to the fact that Iggy in these first few episodes is really ugly looking, because he's more photorealistic.
And a feral goblin bastard.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
It just, all I'm going to say is it makes so much sense that if Iggy Pop were to have a character named after him, it would be a chaotic dog that likes to chew coffee-flavored gum and bite hair. Like, they made him the strangest thing in the world.
Alright, so just going into the tarot breakdown, we'll start with the High Priestess, just because it's in order. So, the High Priestess, upright, represents unconscious intuition, mystery, spirituality, higher power, and inner voice, while in reverse it represents repressed intuition, hidden motives, superficiality, confusion, and cognitive dissonance. Those are fancy words.
And not to mention that, there wasn't a lot of character happening there at all. So it's like, I'm not even sure what to say about that.
Yeah, it's pretty strange. The only ones I can really think of are like superficiality, like she sort of almost falls for the whole trick where Jotaro says like, "Oh, you might be my type." Um,
But doesn't.
yeah, that's about it though. I mean, the High Priestess fight is I would certainly say it's a memorable fight, but like in terms of the thematic, it's not really memorable.
It's not really a fight that I think about ever, to be honest.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I like the idea, that it can just hide in plain sight, basically. But
And it is kind of freaky looking.
it is freaky looking. Yeah. Anyway, I think we can just move on to the fool because we honestly don't have that much to say about the High Priestess.
Actually, I have a couple things to say about those episodes, but not about the High Priestess. I don't have a single note on the High Priestess fight. Not one. But I do have several from the Susie Q moments.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot there to break down.
Alright, let me consult my notes. as we say, as I say every
Even when we're in the same room, consulting notes is necessary for I Want to Fight Araki.
Okay, so one first random thing is that they didn't tell Susie anything that was going on to not worry her. But dear Lord, if they failed and Holly died and she never got to say a proper goodbye, like bro, that would just be a lot worse.
Yeah, it's I to be honest, like I don't really know why they lie to Susie Q. I mean, like she clearly knows that like I mean, I could sort of understand that like like her being scared for her daughter, but like you don't even have to tell her that. You could just be like, "Hey, like Dio's back. We're going to go kill him."
Go kill him.
Like she knows about the Pillar Men and like Hamon and like all these sort of like monstrous things. Like I don't know. Maybe it's just because I read a lot of superhero comics and like ever since like I want to say like the early '90s, like the whole idea of like the secret identity or like having to hide your identity from your loved ones has just been like broken down and like basically like doesn't make sense for any character to do aside from like Spider-Man.
Not to mention, oh gosh, I forgot my point. Oh yeah, not to mention Susie was literally possessed by AC/DC at one point.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
She knows firsthand the shenanigans. I mean, I can't imagine that was a fun experience for her. It seems painful.
One detail I kind of like about the Susie Q parts is like not only that we see like Smokey cameo in a magazine.
Oh, I love that so much.
But also that like her sort of asking like which dress do you prefer is like sort of a reference to Lisa from part 2.
She's still indecisive.
Exactly. Yeah, I thought that was fun.
The amount of dopamine that I get filled with whenever I see the Smokey cameo is amazing. I'm just like, oh my god, he's the mayor of New York now. I'm so proud of him. I am so proud of him. He did good.
He's a good boy.
He truly is. More people need to talk about Smokey. He's a great Joe Bro. He's just like the only normal Joe Bro. He was
honestly.
Just like, what's going on?
I mean, especially when like your other major Joe Bro is von Stroheim, who's like crazy Nazi cyborg.
And then Caesar, who is just crazy for different reasons.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah. We can.
I have an intelligent thing to say.
Yeah, go for it.
I have 3 more intelligent things to say about the Susie Q thing. Let's see. I gotta say the order of which I want to do it. So, at one point, Susie does indeed say that pretty much along the lines of, hey, I know Jotaro comes off as weird, but deep down he really does care, and we're gonna go into, like, I want to go into a whole thing about that for, like, the 3rd time. Let's see. So, it's an interesting vibe when, Susie calls back, and Jotaro answers the phone, and is like, it's alright, Grandma, we'll call you back later, in all his stoic glory. You wouldn't expect him to, like, spare someone's feelings or go out of his way to answer the phone in order to spare someone's feelings, and yet he did, and now I'm going to make a point. So, y'all know that I have to read Atlas. Y'all don't know, but I've been reading Atlas Shrugged for a scholarship, right? And y'all know Ayn Rand. I went on a good old Ayn rant. Like, a while ago in like the first episode when we were talking about part 2, and I was reading a little bit of it, and normally I'm like cringing, but there was this one paragraph that very much screamed, I can say this on the podcast because it reminds me of Jotaro. And I forgot what page it's on, but I have a picture of it right here, in which the protagonist says, whenever anyone accuses some person of being unfeeling, he means that the person is just. He means that the person has no causeless emotions and will not grant him a feeling which he does not deserve. He means that to feel is to go against reason, against moral values, against reality. So there is that, and that is something that is very interesting to me, especially in just the sentence that it's like, when someone is unfeeling, it means that he's just without any causeless emotions. And I was like, wait a minute, that might be my man Jotaro right here.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting observation. I mean, we definitely know that like Jotaro is driven by certain things, just, you know, through his actions and like the fact that he's going to save his mom, but like, you know, it's his cold, like, just because he acts cold and like that's his persona doesn't mean that he necessarily is, you know.
He just sort of, kind of like Joseph in part 2, he cares about what he cares about, and he won't care about anything that he doesn't care about. Like, he will only give the time of day to someone that he personally knows and personally likes.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting. It's interesting to think about.
I think, yeah, it certainly contributes to, like, I think what is Jotaro's, like, greater character arc of, like, becoming more attached to family, and I definitely think these, like, Suzy Q moments, like, really drive that home, particularly the one at the end of the High Priestess episodes where she's like, you know, like, if you Joestars work together, there's nothing that you can't accomplish. And, like, that, you know, it's a very small moment. We don't really even get to see Jotaro's, like, direct reaction to it. But just the fact that he says that, you know, like, hey, like, Joseph is worried, like, are we going to be able to actually do this? And Jotaro's like, well, you know, we're not going to do it alone. And it's Kakyoin Avdol and Polnareff. Like, I think that really shows that, you know, like, I think a large portion of Jotaro's character arc in Stardust Crusaders is, like, him becoming, like, more family-oriented. And the Stardust Crusaders kind of become like his, like, you know, his alternative family as well. Like, he does truly and deeply care about them, even if he, you know, plays it cool most of the time.
I wrote a whole paragraph on that sentence, honestly, and I'm going to elaborate on that immediately. In the sub, he straight up says, we can do it if we work together. This is not only important to Jotaro's character arc, but I feel like it's important for one theme that we love to discuss frequently, but haven't done so in a while, and that's legacy, which we have discussed often, very often, I would say. Let's see what I have here. It's interesting. It's something that I've been thinking about, and I feel like a lot of people have been thinking about. Despite the follies of the past, you must work together with the past to, you know, make the future better. You can't just disregard it, because every past was once a future, and good things and good decisions were made in the past, that is, and every future decision that is made is based on a decision of the past that was a better decision than the last one, and it keeps improving upon itself. So it seems like that is the whole thing. That is one thing that is definitely present in the series, because every single protagonist, I guess, gets a little bit more competent in several ways and seems to be less awful of a person for several reasons. We can talk about the big theory as well.
Yeah.
That goes into that as well. They seem to have more of a grasp on reality, and just like Jonathan, I wouldn't say that. Joseph is just a bastard who cheats on his wife. Jotaro's like rude. And then Josuke's like, I steal from my dad, but I'm a nice guy. And Giorno's like, I will kill people, but I will only kill people that are bad people, and I will do good things. And I don't know what to say about Jolene yet.
I mean, I
haven't finished Stone Ocean.
I certainly think that, I mean, without trying to spoil too much, I think you could sort of say that, like, Jolene is, she's willing to like do anything and everything to like help people. Like self-sacrifice, I think is a big theme.
Yeah, she really going out of the way for her dad that she doesn't even like.
Exactly. And I think it's interesting that you bring up this like point about the past, because I almost feel like part four is like sort of a rejection of that thinking in a way that I mean, there are like good things about the past, but like you sort of have to um like move beyond that, and like not wanting to go too far into part four, but I think a lot of the characters sort of are past focused at the beginning, and it sort of is Josuke who is the one who like really isn't concerned about it, that helps everyone and like drives their character arcs forward. Um, yeah, I that was about all I had to say for the High Priestess episodes.
I think elaborating on that a little bit, it seems like our boy Araki's like, hey, the past has some cool things, but also the future is important, and that's just like, I guess that's what I can get out of all of those things. It's like they need to, both things work hand in hand, all that good stuff. Sometimes you have to reject the past shenanigans to move on, but sometimes you have to work with them. It depends on the situation.
Definitely, definitely.
I think we're done with these episodes, unless you're not
I
done.
I think so as well. Yeah. So let's move on to the Fool episodes. So the Fool in tarot upright represents beginnings, freedom, innocence, originality, adventure, idealism, and spontaneity. While in reverse, it represents recklessness, carelessness, distractedness, naivete, foolishness, gullibility, staleness, and that's it.
I think Iggy is many of those things, actually.
He definitely is. Freedom is something that Iggy clearly values. You know, being sort of shackled, for lack of a better word, to the Crusaders is like not a situation that he likes at all. Um, Obviously, he's sort of spontaneous with his actions, like just the fact that he immediately, fucks up Polnareff's hair and farts in his face and stuff like that.
Not to mention all the cool things that he can do with sand.
Yeah, I mean, like, uh, sort of his freedom to, bend the Fool to his will is like, the Fool is like, especially in Egypt, which is like a desert continent, is like an extremely powerful stand, just because, it can change its shape into anything, basically.
He's also kind of a dumbass, though.
Yes, he is.
I would just say that is the foolishness part. He is simply a goblin, and it fits the vibe very well.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna have a lot more to talk about with these episodes in particular, because like obviously we have the introduction of Iggy, and then sort of the fact that Kakyoin gets blinded is you know as we've sort of criticized, like Kakyoin's arc is like much smaller than it really should be, and but this is like one of the few things that does contribute to it.
But then they decide to cut down his screen time significantly.
Yes.
And opportunities for further character shenanigans.
So I don't really know where I want to specifically start with this, unless you had an idea where you wanted to talk about.
See, I don't have a whole lot of notes on the Iggy thing, but I do have one thing about like the ending thing, so perhaps we should not get to that yet.
Okay. I guess just what I'll say about Iggy real quick is that I think that he's sort of like the comedic relief character and stuff like that. Like, we're sort of at a point in the story where everyone is like getting along with each other pretty well. So like, you sort of have to reintroduce some like internal conflict with the group. I think Iggy, like as we've criticized the Kakyoin, is a case in general, like not just in these specific episodes, where I think his character could have been really great and like really a highlight of the series, but he just doesn't get the time that he really needs. And then I think, as we'll get into later, another part of that is that this is one of like 3 times we see the Fool in the remaining of the series. which I just think is like such a it's just the Fool just conceptually is like a really cool stand. Like it's essentially like got, you know, infinite forms it can take and like infinite uses in battle as a result of that, but you know, it's just not really utilized to its fullest extent. But that being said, I do enjoy Iggy as a character. I mean, I think he certainly adds some life to the group in terms of these episodes, and definitely his relationship to Polnareff is a highlight, as we'll see later on.
It's quite funny. I enjoy it a lot. Iggy doesn't get a whole lot going on until his good old two-parter in which he fights a bird.
Yeah.
Which is fun. I don't know if I have anything else to say about that, honestly. Oh, wait. There was that nice little moment at the very end of the fight where, you know, they sort of call a truce. The two of them, you know, Jotaro and Iggy. And one of my favorite things in the world is watching Jotaro talk to Iggy.
Yeah.
He just, like, talks to him like he's a person. It's like, all right, you stupid dog. Can we work together here, please? And at the end, he's like, oh, I got your hat. And he's like, oh, thanks. And he's like, oh, wait, there's gum in this hat. And then Iggy's like, got you. This is revenge. Now we're even. Now you're even because you literally threw me at some dude.
Oh, that's a baseball. Yeah, so, I don't know. Should we also... I guess the other big thing that happened in these episodes is the introduction of the Egyptian god stands. We're sort of moving out of tarot. That's why I didn't really do a breakdown for Geb, which is the stand in this episode. I have to say, though, I think Indul is actually one of the more interesting one-off villains. I think the fact that he's, like, blind is sort of a unique trait, and... you know, he clearly... I think the part where, like, Jotaro is about to punch him with Star Platinum, and there's almost sort of an acknowledgement that he's gonna die in that situation. I just thought that was a pretty interesting character moment, and, you know, certainly makes him more memorable than some of the other one-off villains.
Not to mention, I like to say that this is literally the exact opposite of that one episode in Avatar: The Last Airbender, where they're in the desert, and Toph is just like... Normally, she blinds, so she see with her feet, right? But she cannot see in the sand, because it's all shifty and fuzzy. And it's just like, it just reminds me of that a lot. Apparently, Indul is both a waterbender and an earthbender at the same time, which is pretty cool.
He's the Avatar of the JoJo world.
He's the Avatar, but we haven't seen him airbender, firebend, so,
it's
like,
true.
Who knows? Maybe he just hasn't learned those other two elements.
And he kills himself with his waterbending, so, you know...
I guess he did, didn't he?
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know, these episodes are kind of weird to talk about, because it's like, there's a lot happens in one, and there's not a lot happening in the other, and a lot of, I mean, we're definitely going to be spending more time talking about Iggy in the future, but just, like, where he is right now, it's kind of difficult to, like, fully form.
Yeah. I feel like with these two episodes, it's like, there's a hot couple of interesting... It's like a couple of really interesting things happen, but in between that, it's just like fighting. And it's nothing like, you know... I guess we have some like moments of, you know, a good couple of character moments where... those are... They can be in the silly stuff, but it's also a good character moment where Kakyoin is just like, Polnareff, attack the king. He's like, why do you want me to do it? You have more range. And he's like, I don't want to. He's like, what? And he's like, no means no.
It is a great moment. I have to say, we're sort of... I feel like the Fool and Geb episodes are... it's really like the first time that the series has like gone back into horror since like part 2, I think.
It's terrifying.
I mean, just the idea of like this water that like kills people, it like rips a dude's head off. The one guy who's crushed by the helicopter, and he's like scratching at the sides of it with his fingernails. Like, yeah, I mean, it's pretty freaky, honestly.
You're just gonna ignore all the other freaky stuff like happened, like Yellow Temperance and
I mean,
13 and the other, the murder doll.
Those are freaky, but like it's not really like scary. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I am legitimately intimidated by Geb in
I'm
these
also
episodes.
intimidated by Yellow Temperance. Would not mess with that guy.
The cherry fucking takes me out of it a little bit.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's like dog murder.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I
That's
think
true.
the worst dog murder happened in the first half of Part 3.
Yeah,
We had two very disturbing instances.
the Yellow Temperance one is worse for me. Just the fact that, like, it rips the dog's head off is like the
Poor dogs.
um
Should I go on my cult rant now?
yeah, why don't you
Or are you done?
Yeah, I'm done. I don't really have that much else.
Want to talk about cults?
Yeah.
Ooh, so we have. I'm surprised at how much I'm getting from all the Tiny Dio moments, despite how underused he is throughout the whole part. They could have utilized him much better because they set up something really interesting, a good old horror thing that Araki loves. A cult. Dio has a literal cult. And throughout through little moments, it shows how he sort of controls or recruits his allies by being terrifyingly sensual and all that. I'll never forget that combination of words that I hate so much. It sounds like something that Ayn Rand would say. Let's see. I feel like it got even more infinitely interesting when Indul is talking about why he started to follow Dio, and that Dio was apparently the first person to acknowledge his worth and gave him a little nice pat on the head.
Yeah.
And it seemed to be like that probably, if it happened to one person, it probably happened to several other of these stand users. I mean, Kakyoin had the whole thing where he was like, no one understands me because no one can see my weird imaginary friend. It's like, it seems like they explain later that Dio got so many stand users because of the arrow, but at the same time, it's almost more fun to believe that he found stand users who were sort of like, I guess, at a weakened state because they felt different from everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we get into the cult things, because that's what cults generally do, is they target people who are weak at the time and make them feel as if they have a purpose. And
yay, cults.
Yay, cults. And Dio definitely has a sex cult. I mean, literally, that's how Joe Exotic, that's how Joe Exotic recruited people. They literally said that he went around and he found people that were like, his intentions seemed good, but at the same time, he was recruiting people that were at a very bad place in their life, and it caused, y'all have seen Tiger King, it caused some bad things to happen to those people and him. It caused bad things for everyone, despite of, him. It seemed as if he really did have good intentions. He was just a dumbass, but he really did kind of have a sex cult, and so does Dio.
I think it's interesting that you bring that up, because I would say, with like sort of the exception of Kira, there is almost like a cult-like thing going on with a lot of the villains of JoJo. Like Diavolo. Yes, he is a mob boss, but like, people are willing to die and like kill themselves for Diavolo. I mean. And not to go too far into part 5, but like that sort of influences like his belief that like his entitlement, that he believes that he should be able to rule the world, essentially. And then you have Pucci in part 6, who is he's a priest that serves Dio. I mean, like, I think it's pretty clear what they're trying to sort of communicate there.
I'm getting the vibe that Araki doesn't really vibe with Christianity all that much.
No. I mean, the fact that he literally named his villain God is like, I
have a feeling that was unintentional, because he named him that because of Ronnie James Dio.
Oh, that's true.
Who happens
that's
to
true.
just be a heavy metal guy.
I mean, it could be both.
It could be both. The guy just happened to have a last name that means God. Actually, back to the, I know a hot couple of things about how gangs work, and... oh gosh, it scared me. The noise. I know a hot couple of things about how gangs work, and it's basically like a cult without religion. I don't know a lot, but I've seen some documentaries about the old New York gangs, and how they sort of kept people in check by, oftentimes they also, most people that are in gangs are generally people that don't have very good lives, and they find a cause to dedicate themselves to, and it's like, they don't really care if they live or die or not, as long as they have a purpose while they're still alive, It's very messed up, but we can talk about that in part 5. And you know what?
Yeah.
I just got a really good idea of a whole. I'm going to research gangs more for part 5 because this is an interesting thing that it could be.
It is. It's an interesting rabbit hole.
I have a quote.
Yeah, go for it.
Right. So one of my favorite quotes, it's brilliant, something that Ndul says when he's talking about Dio is, "Evil needs an evil savior," and I guess this is how he was able to recruit powerful enemies that lack restraint, because one, they feel outsiders because they have stands, and two, well, maybe not. Maybe he gave them the stands, which is stupid. It would make more sense if he found people that already had stands, which is what he was doing.
I mean, we definitely know that some of them have stands, just already for whatever reason.
Yeah, and then he targeted Kakyoin and Abdal for the same reasons, and except he didn't end up recruiting them because they actually have restraint, and that is where that's where he messed up. What? On getting, that's why he didn't get those two, is because they weren't, they were outsiders because they had stands, but everyone else that he recruited was also an outsider because they were kind of awful. Ndul was a criminal,
right.
And,
I mean, he used his powers to, rob and murder people.
And, of course, it's the same kind of things with gangs. You've already done one bad thing. You might as well keep doing bad things. You can't really stop doing the bad things because you've already damned yourself. So might as well get to this, this evil savior who believes in me and help him out.
I think that point about restraint is actually pretty interesting because it's it almost works with the hyper-violence that this show has, where people just explode into blood and stuff like that. These are all people with no restraint, and whether that be morally or just because Dio is that sort of compelling as a person and as a charismatic figure. But that's why things always get so bloody, and always get so violent in many ways. I think it's an interesting thing to think about.
Indeed. Dio certainly doesn't have any restraint, I'll tell you that.
No, especially in the fight. Oh my god.
He just goes off. And he just does whatever the heck he wants. That's why he has several bastard children.
It's true. Alright, so do we have anything else serious?
I do not think we do. Hold on, let me consult my notes one more time.
One final time.
Nope, I'm done. Alright. I covered everything, I think.
So why don't we hop into some silly stuff, yeah.
I already talked about I don't want to.
Yeah, that's a great moment. I think there's a lot of funny English moments in these episodes. You had Joseph saying "Holy shit" when they're inside the High Priestess, and you got Polnareff says something that's pretty random, but yeah, there's all those moments. I think I'm trying to remember what else. I mean, Iggy is a pretty funny character to just watch, and I love the part when they're Iggy's in the backseat, and then Avdol, Kakyoin, and Polnareff are in the seat behind him, and they're all squished up, and Polnareff is what the heck? Why does he get to ride in the back seat? And Avdol and Kakyoin just have on the most serious faces of all time.
They are just there. I have I think my favorite moment from these episodes was the hand signals.
Yeah, the hand signals is great.
Those two were bonding. They just were we can use hand signals to communicate underwater, and then Polnareff does a whole thing, and then somehow Kakyoin knows exactly what it means, and then they're and it's your underwear is showing. It's yeah, and then they do this other secret handshake that no one ever knew about before with the most serious expressions on their face in the world. And then Joseph's just like, stop fucking around, guys, come on.
It's very random, but it's super funny.
It's brilliant. It's pure comedic genius. That one guy from the Speedwagon Foundation with the face.
Oh my god, yeah.
Face.
One of the pilots from the Speedwagon Foundation just has like the most like shit-eating grin ever. like I think when I first watched these episodes, I thought like he was gonna be the villain for a second. Like
because he just has a weird face.
He does, yeah.
I don't. It's just weird. I don't know how to describe it.
Especially given the fact that like the High Priestess episodes end with like a Speedwagon Foundation member being killed. But yeah, speaking of the cult thing, like one last thing I'll say is, because there's a shot of like the Speedwagon Foundation guy looking at the Egyptian god users, leaving, and they're all like in cloaks, and like, you know, it's very sort of mysterious.
Cult?
Yeah, it's like a little bit of like a cult aesthetic going on there.
It's just a cult. Oh, and let's not forget the most memorable thing that is most memed, Yeet. When Star Platinum just freaking picks up a dog and throws him. Like, literally, he looks like a baseball player doing a pitch. And not to mention, like, afterwards, every time Star Platinum screams, I lose my mind. And I think the best Star Platinum scream happened there. It's just, like, it was just so good. And I've seen so many, like ear rapey versions of it.
My favorite is
one.
The squiggly one, yeah, where it's like, like that's what it sounds like.
It has such a specific scream. And he's just nothing even happening. He already did it, but he just felt like screaming. I'm like, okay, that is JoJo's soul. Just a big buff purple guy that yells a lot.
My soul is like, it's just like a beanbag chair, you know, you just kind of like sit in it, so it's a little bit squishy.
Oh gosh. Me earlier when I was like, my gender is Jareth the Goblin King, feral but sexy. That's Dio too.
It's true.
Dio does have the Jareth vibes going on.
He really does. They're both blonde. They both
especially in part 1, though, they have like a similar outfit going on.
Yeah, they both got like a sort of dark purple thing going on.
Not to mention that Labyrinth came out around the same time that part 1 did, so. And, you know, we all know that Araki's a Bowie fan. I highly doubt that he hasn't seen it before.
Are the rock people from JoJolian, like the Skeksis?
The rock people? Wait, there's rock people?
Yeah, there's rock people. I
haven't gotten that far yet. Rock people. Do they look like ugly birds?
I don't know.
Alright, and also, let's not forget that scene where, like, after Iggy got punted, where, you know, JoJo and Duel are just, like, having a stare-off as, like, he drops his cane. It's, like, a solid 20 seconds.
It takes forever.
And you just, it, like, keeps going between the cane falling, then his face, and Iggy progressively getting more and more freaked out.
I love when it's almost there, like, Iggy is just, like, sweating from every orifice possible.
That's how I feel often. It's like losing my mind. Oh, gosh. Also, I think we already mentioned how Susie was indecisive.
Yeah, that's a cute moment for sure.
It's a lovely moment I enjoy.
Really just, like, Rosas, like, trying to keep Susie, like, from finding out, like, what is going on is pretty funny.
Indeed. I think that's all the silly stuff I have.
Yeah, I think that's all the stuff I have.
One more thing. Part 3 has the best outros. Don't fight me on this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we totally forgot to talk about End of the World as the OP. I forgot that started with these episodes. I
was actually thinking I want to do a whole episode just about the music in JoJo as a whole.
Yeah.
Because I have things to say about that.
Definitely. I mean, the only thing I'll really say for End of the World is...
the vibe changes.
First off, go watch the Mother's Basement video breaking it down because it's really smart. But I think it just helps to signify like the first OP, Stand Proud is like, yeah, getting hyped, like it's gonna be a great adventure, guys, go around, do all that stuff. And End of the World is like, all right, shit's getting serious now. Like,
Even in the outro, there's like a tonal shift. You got like ooey bopping out to like 80s jams.
Yeah.
And now it's like sad.
exactly. Like, it's just a sad song. Like, even if you don't, know what's necessarily going to happen, it's just got that vibe to it.
It hits you right there. It's a damn good song.
All right, so I don't have anything else.
We're done, I guess.
I think we're done. Yeah. So if you want to keep up with all the silly, semi-serious things that I post about in my free time, you can follow me at Thomas M. Brickman on Twitter. I also do another podcast with my buddy Kevin. We are currently on hiatus right now, but we're going to be getting back to talking about video game news and video game reviews because it is the one thing that is consistent in the pandemic. We're still getting video games. So if you want to keep up with that, listen to that, you can find us on YouTube. It's post-game content. If you want to keep up with all the news and stuff relating to that, it's at PostGameCon. That's at PostGameCon on Twitter. And Emily, where can people find you on the internet?
At Emily Winkle's Twitter. I'm there. I do things occasionally.
And if you want to keep up with all the goings-on, the news, the memes, everything that is related to this podcast, you can follow us at iwanttofightar1 on Twitter, and iwanttofightaraki on Instagram.
My observations are top-notch on there.
I would agree, yes. And with all that said, we'll see you guys next time when we break down more Stardust Crusaders. We'll see you then.